All right, hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Maddie B, and we got a special guest, Jeff Myers, back on the show this week, host of Spaces or Laces. Hopefully, Jeff, you're able to attend more often. Get you back on. So let's kick it into high tempo. Matt, what do you got for us this week?
Awesome. Don't really have a whole lot this week. Just enjoying a lot of the playoff football and stuff that we're going to get into a little bit later.
You want to hit on that Bruce Arians thing?
Absolutely. Arians just signed a 4-year deal with the 5th-year option to become the next head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Some familiar faces recycled through. Byron Leftwich is going to be their passing game coordinator, so good to see him moving up. Clyde Christensen is QB coach. Harold Goodwin is run game coordinator and O-line. So he's already finalizing some people, and I believe he also brought back Todd Bowles as his defensive coordinator. So had him with him, I believe, in Arizona, and now he's back, reunited, and going to try to take over the Bucs.
That's what I was going to say. He just recycling his Arizona coaches. Didn't work once for him. Why not give it another go? And if you remember, last week we mentioned Tampa Bay's owner said that whoever the new coach was has to be ready to play Jameis Winston. So it's going to be very interesting. That's not the kind of style quarterback that Arians is used to throwing out there. Jeff, what do you got this week for high tempo?
So my high tempo thing for the week is the drama that's going on in Pittsburgh. Obviously, as you guys know, Steelers didn't make the playoffs, and it seems like the team's kind of unraveling with the Antonio Brown drama. Ryan Clark, Antonio Brown are having I don't even know what to call it. It's like high school drama. Ryan Clark calling out instances from 2016 when AB got paid, got the big contract extension after what's his name? Mike Wallace was let go, and I guess there was an incident where he cussed out Dick LeBeau in the field, and Ryan Clark said he would be a problem for the rest of his tenure in Pittsburgh. So I don't know if Ryan Clark is a future teller or not, but apparently that is coming true now in 2019. Not really sure if Steelers are going to trade him or not, but it's going to be interesting what unfolds here the next coming weeks and months in the Steelers offseason.
Well, let's back up. We know it's the offseason first off when we're talking about crazy drama stuff. But Last week after the show, what was it, Wednesday? Fox aired that Masked Singer or whatever that new show is. And one of the first guys, I think he was actually the first guy that they unmasked, was Antonio Brown. So I wonder if a lot of the drama was sort of a promotion for that show. As crazy as it is, he might be getting ready for a life after football. If you remember, that's what Ocho Cinco and T.O. did. They did their own sports network there for a while. And I think that was why they were both still in the league. I could be wrong, but they were trying to get their name out there with feelers to see if they could make that next step. Antonio Brown being in the spotlight, getting a lot of people that don't know football players to recognize his name and his face. Maybe he's getting ready for that life after football. But I don't know at this point because the drama, like you said, Jeff, keeps going. He's asking for trades. Is that true or not? I don't know. Matt, what do you think on that?
I think as far as the trade front's concerned, he's almost putting himself in a position where he can't come back from. I think had he have not gone on social media, I mean, we've talked about this before. When these professional athletes go on social media, it really does look like high school drama that they're airing out in front of everyone. If they don't air that out in that way, you never would have known half of the stuff that was going on. And I think because of how poorly the season ended, the terms that it ended, and then with all of the extra stuff now that's coming out, they're almost, if a reasonable offer is going to be put on the table, I think he's going to be gone. But the thing of it is, what's reasonable value for him? I mean, at minimum, I think I don't know that you're going to get a first rounder for him, even though that's what Dallas gave up for Amari Cooper.
Do they even need a first round, though? it really comes down to cutting the contract. If you're going to get rid of him, you got to get the contract. I don't know if they have, and I don't know all the NFL rules, if it's like Major League Baseball where you can be paying on someone once you trade him, which I believe you can. You got to get rid of all of that. You don't want to be paying for someone that's not on the roster. And number two, get anyone in return. I think benching him that last week was a tryout to see what the receiving core looked like without him. They got the win. Wasn't pretty by any means. And I honestly think, I've said it last week, and I'm going to get your thoughts here in a second, Jeff, since you weren't on. I think that he's just pumped up because of Ben Roethlisberger. We've seen it time and time again with countless receivers. Once they leave Pittsburgh, their production drops off. So, Jeff, what's your thought on that?
Well, it's kind of hard to tell. I mean, throughout AB's career, he's been a top 5 receiver basically every single year. When Mike Wallace left the Steelers, his career kind of went the turmoil. Emmanuel Sanders did pretty well at Denver, but I definitely think his stats are inflated with Ben Roethlisberger. And as you mentioned, the last game of the season, Week 17, Juju Smith-Schuster showed he can be a number 1. I'm not sold yet that Washington's a solid number 2, but I definitely could see the Steelers now, as Matt said, with all the drama surrounding him getting a fight with Ben Roethlisberger, him being mad with Juju being named the MVP of the team. There's definitely a lot of bad things going on in the Steelers locker room, so this might be the perfect exit. Juju, early in his career, is stepping up. He's proven, in my opinion, he can be a number 1 on a team, especially a team led by Ben Roethlisberger. Washington yet, I'm not sure. You have Eli Rogers. I'm not really sure the 2 to 3 position there at the receiver, in the receiver core, but the Juju can definitely be a number 1. If AB's going to throw fits and act like a prima donna, much like T.O. did throughout his career, I think it might be time. If you get a number 1, I think he's worth a number 1. Amari Cooper set the market value as being, trading him for a number 1. Khalil Mack, the Bears gave up 2 number 1s for him. So I feel like if the Steelers are going to trade him, you have to get a number 1.
Yeah, I think they do, but I think it's going to be, if they get it's going to be a late number 1. It's not going to be high. It's definitely not going to be 2 like Khalil Mack got. He doesn't have that kind of impact. I mean, look at all the times he's blown up on the sidelines. He's only hurting himself with that kind of thing. It's the same exact situation that Bell put himself into. Luckily for Brown, he only missed the last game. So they don't know if he wasn't there for Oakland and some of those other games, do they win those games? Hurting. Go ahead, Matt.
Here's the one other thing that you're leaving off the table. With Amari Cooper, with Khalil Mack, what's the thing that they have in common that's separate from Antonio Brown?
Age.
It's the age thing. So when you're getting a 24-year-old that has his prime year set in front of him, it makes sense for a first-round draft pick. You see some of these late-year guys that I don't think that you get the production out of them in other places that you do in Pittsburgh. Is he still going to make his splash plays? Absolutely. But I don't know that his catches are going to be as much, and I just don't think overall you're going to get the production. And they're going to look at what? He'll probably have a drop-off being in a new system if they trade him. And then in the second year, he'll end up making that money or making the plays because he'll acclimate to the system. And then at that point, he'll be going into 33, 34 years of age. His performance has to tail off. And I just don't think that the market's going to give him that much. I could see probably a 2, like packaging a 2 and a 4, or a 2, and depending on what players they could address a need. This is using a fantasy trade, but I know this would never happen. But I'd love to just see them go straight up with Jacksonville and bring Jalen Ramsey over. That would be my dream pick to have. That would solidify half your secondary, that you could just leave him manned up and not have to worry about him. But I know that would never happen.
Yeah, I don't think they would do that. And we even talked about Jacksonville trying to get rid of him anyway. So you might be able to sit back and get a hold of him for way cheaper than that. The only thing that I don't want to see is him end up in New England or somewhere similar to what James Harrison did. You don't want that. And the early rumors, we talked about the 49ers last week, but a lot of Jets fans were wanting to hire Mike Tomlin. We talked about that. They were tweeting at the show. Then we also had Jets players come out, and they're trying to actively recruit Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown. I don't know if he has a no-trade clause, but it would be amazing to see what they do if both of them ended up on the same team. And a team like the Jets, because they don't win a whole lot. So if you're going to take two stars that a lot of people think part of the Killer Bees, they're the reason the Steelers win, I want to see what happens. That's what I was bringing in for High Tempo. Are the Jets going to try to get and become a Steelers, taking those cornerstones and seeing what happens with the high-powered offense? We'll wait and see. Do you guys got anything?
That being said, if those Jets players are recruiting like that, is there the possibility of running into some collusion?
I think it's only if it's coaching, right?
I don't know. I mean, they're saying about Tomlin going, but Brown's under contract right now, and they're reaching out and trying to stir stuff. So I don't see why it wouldn't fall under that same umbrella. I don't know all the legalities in that, but to me, that's something that just makes sense.
Well, I would think it's similar to the NBA. And if you remember, LeBron and all them were all trying to recruit each other onto the same teams, and it wasn't a big deal. But as soon as Magic Johnson tweeted at someone or something like that when he was head of the Lakers, they started an investigation immediately. I think it's different whenever it's players because they're kind of like the hired help. And if it's up to them, like they're not going to be able to swing a trade one way or the other. It's not going to be like the front office for the Steelers is like, yeah, there's a ton of Jets players tweeting at him. We better trade him there. Like, that has no power. So I think that's beyond scope. And for free agents, I would assume they can recruit anyone. In the case of Bell, because he's unrestricted, I believe. So we'll see coming up. Anything else you guys got on that?
Just want to add one more thing, though. Matt made a good point about his age. Antonio Brown will be 30 years old. So when you're considering the future, AB is aging, so that would definitely bring down his value. But if you have a team like the Cowboys, the Packers, you have a good offense with especially the Packers. You have Aaron Rodgers, a situation where you might need one star player to make that great playoff run. Then AB might fall into one of those teams. And you mentioned, Richie, the 49ers. That's the one that comes to my mind the most. You have Jimmy G coming back. They don't really have a star receiver, but
why?
Maybe AB.
Why would you go there? They haven't won in a decade. Well, I guess not. If you don't count the Harbaugh years, it's been 2 decades.
Yeah.
It's been forever. They hired one good coach. They pushed him out because the front office is full of idiots. And then what are they going to do out there? They're almost as bad as the Browns. They're like the NFC Browns right now. As long as Jed York is the owner, they are the Browns. He got lucky with one hire, and he went cheap hiring a college coach from Stanford with that hire. Got lucky. Pushed him out, and now what happened? They've been garbage ever since. So, prove me wrong, 49ers. But I think right now they're the laughingstock of the NFC. People make fun of the Browns, but I think the Browns have way more upside. You can hire... there was a stat, actually, that I had for the show, and of course I won't be able to find it now, but the top 6 highest-paid quarterbacks didn't lead their team to the playoffs this year. I think it was 6. Might have been more than that. So, and Garoppolo was one of them. The guys with the biggest contracts at quarterback, you can't build a team that way. And that's what the 49ers tried to do, and it's across the league. If you have a high-paid quarterback, you're not going to be in the playoffs because you can't build around the other guys. So don't eat the contracts. Let's move into Steel City update because we're going to be football heavy this week with the playoffs and the national championship game. But I want to hit on the Penguins first. 8-2 in the last 10. They dropped their last game, but they've been playing lights out. 2 points right now behind the Caps in the Metropolitan, right where they need to be. Goalie has been on fire. Both goalies. I mean, definitely maybe the injury with Matt Murray going out with the concussion and being out longer than I expected anyway. Maybe that was good for him because right now he's reset, and the Penguins are looking like they can attack once again. Because for a while their defense had so many holes that I don't want to say they were tentative, but they weren't the Penguins that we've been used to seeing the past 2 weeks, or the past 2 years, I mean. So let's go. Let's get things rolling. New year starting. Make a push. I don't even care if you win the division. That's meaningless. But try to get into a good playoff position. They're going to end up meeting the Caps anyway. And I think it's going to be stay healthy. That's the motto right now. Stay healthy. Get your line settled down. They did sign... did they sign Gensel to an extension? Did we miss that last week? I think they did. I'll try to bring that up. But either of you guys want to talk about the Penguins quick?
I think as we were looking and we were saying about the defense, I mean, it seems dumb in hindsight, but the missing piece was have Murray gone, and definitely with getting him back and getting him healthy, it definitely shows. And with the rattling off wins consistently, like maybe just having that solid goaltender, guys can take some more chances where maybe they're playing.
You guys are breaking up a bit here, but in the meantime, until those guys get back on, Penguins did sign Jake Gensel to a 5-year contract. The 5-year extension is worth $30 million. So it's a $30 million 5-year extension. So Gensel will be signed through the 2023-2024 campaign. His average right now is $6 million. I'm not sure if the guys are dropping out here, but the video for me just went black. So we'll see. I think I got you, Jeff. I think Matt froze.
Okay, you got me?
Yeah, I think that's what the problem is. Matt froze on that while he was talking. So... right now, it's looking like Penguins are in a good position, and we'll see what happens going forward. Don't have anything on the Pirates, but I'm going to go ahead and shift into the NFL playoffs and see what happens. Jeff, can you hear me, or are you cutting out?
I thought the Pirates did have fire.
What's up?
I thought the Pirates did sign their old bench coach back.
Yeah, Matt, is that anything worth reporting on?
Well, yeah, I mean, the Cards were signing Goldschmidt. They were going after players, and they went after the Buccos, got their old bench coach back.
That's like you're bringing back a loser into the same organization. It's like, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. That's what the Pirates are doing. It wasn't the bench coach that was getting them to the playoffs or making improvements on their roster. I'll go on the record with that. Definitely, they got to make actual player moves, and they're not going to do that. And actually, going back a little bit here, we did mention that they were in on Tulowitzki. I don't know if we brought that up last week, but they were outbid by the Yankees anyway. And it was the league minimum the Yankees signed him for. So they couldn't even get a guy for a little bit more than league minimum. Not willing to pay. At least to have a name. Right now, who are you going to see on the Pirates if you're a casual fan? They don't have any names that you would say, you know what, I got to buy a ticket to take my kids because they have to see so-and-so while they play with the Pirates. They don't have that guy. You've always had that guy. When I was growing up, you had Barry Bonds. Then you had Jason Kendall. You brought in other guys that you knew were going to be at least in the conversation for Pittsburgh-type Hall of Fame numbers. But now you don't really have anyone since you lost McCutchen.
But the argument's always been you go for the experience, the stadium experience, and how nice the area is. Like there's never any mention of the team. You're going to see what players come in from the other teams to that nice ballpark, and you get to enjoy the game from anywhere. I mean that's the argument that's always made.
I'll be honest. One of my fondest memories, and you might have been at this game with me, Matt, because I had a couple other friends that were at this game. Just coincidentally, that it was Tony Gwynn's farewell tour. He hit his last home run in, what was it? It might have been Three River Stadium. So I was at the Three River Stadium when Tony Gwynn hit his last home run in Pittsburgh, which is ridiculous that that's like my fondest memory is a San Diego Padre coming through and hitting his home run. He came out and got a standing O. Not a Pirates guy randomly. Tony Gwynn. So, crazy. And I think it was like a trip with like our youth or whatever. So I think it was like a bunch of our family were there.
I think you're right.
So crazy that's what I would think of. And you're right. Everyone always talks about the team or the stadium and, you can get a grilly cheese. Remember when that was a selling point? Go get your grilly cheese. And the crazy thing is you still have the Honus Wagner. You have the Roberto Clemente. You're like talking about players that anyone younger than me, they probably have no idea who these guys are. Because I grew up a little bit before the internet. It was blossoming when I was young. So you still had to watch SportsCenter. And they talked about those legendary guys a good bit. Now, if you're on social media, you never really see anything about them. You might see that they're like doing some charity work, like the Roberto Clemente Foundation. But other than that, you really don't hear about anything. And the Pirates don't do a good enough job marketing those players as is. They went for the stadium experience. I don't think it's going to pay off. We'll see. We'll see what happens coming up. Jeff, you have anything to add? Go ahead, Matt.
All things considered, though, it is paying off because the bottom line is they're still making money hand over fist. They're still cutting players. They're still doing all the stuff that we've complained about for months. But it's not hurting them in terms of revenue. They're still making money off it. So until they start to truly lose money, you're going to see more of the same. And it's sad for the actual Pirates fans because they want to see a winner, and you're just not going to get it unless you start getting more development out of all of the players that we keep trading people for. They keep signing all these prospects, and until you start getting something out of your farm system, you're not going to see that production.
Yeah, I agree. $80 million revenue. And I heard some people on local Pittsburgh radio talking about how it wouldn't have been worth it for the Pirates if they would have signed someone, I forget who it was, because then the revenue only would have been $70 million. Like, why would I care if the owners lost $10 million? He's still in the positive. It's just crazy that a bunch of guys are spinning that narrative and wanting to get that. But, Jeff, you're closer, I think, right now than both of us. What do you think? Do you go to the games?
I mean, I basically last couple of years have only been going to 1 or 2 games a year, and every game I'm at, the stadium's empty. So I don't know how they keep making money, as Matt's saying. I just know in the early, a couple of years in my early college days, 2012 through like 15, when they were making playoff appearances, there was buzz in Pittsburgh. There was excitement. But unfortunately, the Pirates never made that splash acquisition, never brought in someone that could help make them push them over the edge, win a couple playoff games. I mean, that one year they won the wild card and they got killed by the Cardinals. That was their best chance, honestly. And I just don't see the buzz. I feel like it's dying. I saw someone tweet recently that with the Steelers drama and the Pirates not being relevant again, that the city of Pittsburgh is rallying around the Penguins. They won 2 Stanley Cups in recent years, and hopefully this year they make another playoff run. But I just don't see the Pirates. I mean, I just don't think their roster is good enough to make a real push at even making the playoffs. So it's very hard as a Pirates fan to get excited, go to the ballpark, buy their $10 beers, their $6, $7, $8 hot dogs. I just don't see how they're making money because every time I go every year, the stadium's empty.
It's corporate tickets. And it still is the cheapest sport in Pittsburgh, no matter how well Penguins and Steelers are going to do. People are still going to buy it. It's a warm weather. It's something to do downtown. Take the family if you're from out of the area. But we'll leave it at that for now. We'll be getting back into them when spring training hits and maybe try to be a little bit more optimistic this year, but I doubt it. Not when the Cardinals are out making moves like that. But let's get into the NFL playoffs, and I'm going to start on a negative note here. Personally, I watched the Eagles game, and I was so excited because they were about to lose. And the Bears, they missed a field goal. And that guy, they iced the kicker. No, he hit the goalpost. They iced him at the end of the game, and it worked. And I thought that trend was over because if they wouldn't have called that timeout, he hit the first one. Then the second one hit off the upright, then hit off the crossbar, so it bounced off twice, and I thought it might still roll in. Didn't get it done.
The NFL changed it. They said it was deflected. The NFL ruled it. They ruled it a block instead of a missed field goal.
Really?
Not that it matters.
Yeah. Why would they go back and say that?
It was tipped to the line.
I don't know.
Video replay, it was tipped to the line.
It was still too close for even that to happen. So I don't know. Doesn't make me feel any better that it was blocked. That's just as bad. Because it was only like a 30-yard attempt, or was it 43? I can't remember.
41 or 43, yeah.
I'm getting
my... He should have banged it home.
Yeah, he should have. And if you're an Eagles fan, you need to be cheering for Nick Foles. And I'll be honest, I don't even know how they can go back to Carson Wentz. Because that team, it's looking like Carson Wentz might be a Peyton Manning type, where he's a hero in the regular season. But in the big games, he wasn't showing up. Foles comes in, and he's able to get it done. He scored late. Even if they would have lost, the only reason they're in that position is because of Foles having ice in his veins. It's crazy. I don't even know. He's probably a good bit older now, but you have to roll with him, I would think. You got to roll with him. You have a Super Bowl winning quarterback. You weren't going to make the playoffs until he started playing this year. Let's be honest. You were not going to make it if you're an Eagles. Not even close. Foles comes in, wins a couple games in a row, and they squeak in at, 9-7? Then they go ahead, play with the Bears, play them tight. Looks like Foles gets the game-winning touchdown. Then the Bears march right down the field, or gets them the field goal, I can't remember. And the Bears then look like they're going to take it, and they do the Bears thing that they normally do and choke. So, crazy. I hate seeing that. We'll go around the horn now. Jeff, what did you think of the NFL playoffs this week? Anything that stood out to you?
I mean, that was the one thing I was going to mention in the Bears game. I was really rooting for them, but St. Nick had a little magic left. And, hey, if you're an Eagles fan, you have to be optimistic. He won a Super Bowl last year. It looks like he's rolling again. But talking about rolling, the one thing that I wanted to mention about the NFL playoffs is Andrew Luck is getting hot when it matters. Obviously, it was just a wild card game, but at the end of the season as well, he's been playing tough. He's been playing well. He's been making all the throws. Maybe we're going to see a Joe Flacco performance here in the playoffs. Maybe Andrew Luck's going to roll. We'll know more this week when he plays at Arrowhead, because that's one of the hardest places to play in the NFL, especially in the playoffs. So I'm very curious to see how Andrew Luck and the Colts play. But I thought it was crazy, though, T.Y. Hilton showing up to the game with the clown mask. He showed up with the it mask because one of the cornerbacks for the Texans called him out and said he's a clown, he's a nobody, he's not going to do anything against them. And T.Y. Hilton came out, played well. Andrew Luck came out, played well. I don't know. I thought I was very ballsy move by T.Y. Hilton, and he came to play. So hats off to him and the Colts. We'll see if they're a real team now once they play in Arrowhead, because that's a whole different animal than playing at the Texans, who, in my opinion, don't really have a home field advantage.
All right, Matt, you're up. What did you think of the playoffs this week?
Well, on the opposite end, remember, the Colts are playing Andy Reid, who's famous for not winning when the playoffs roll around. Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised. Actually, I think this was as much of a middle finger from the front office when they took as much flack as they did drafting the guard from Notre Dame, Quentin Nelson. And they said, well, that was a wasted pick. Well, all they've done is solidified all the supports around Luck and kept him from taking a beating. And it's amazing when you protect your franchise quarterback and don't put paper mache in front of him, how much better he performs. All around, I thought they looked well. The team that really laid an egg and thought good for him was the Ratbirds. Watching the San Diego Chargers play them up was a thing of beauty. After hearing about how Lamar Jackson was going to run wild, they really look exposed. And I think that's one of those, that's why you don't see a lot of option in the NFL, because defensive coordinators have the time to game plan for it. And unless an NFL team decides to go completely all in and really just go for it with some of the reads, I don't think I don't think that it's going to be as successful. I think it'll be a flash in the pan Wildcat scenario like it was for Miami.
That might be a bit of a hot take there, because the Ravens were in a position to win that game. It came down to that strip fumble at the end of the game where Lamar Jackson didn't feel the pocket, which I don't think that was anything on him. That's just a rookie quarterback thing. Not used to the speed of the NFL. He pulled back to throw when I thought he could have stepped up and had a guy that was open. He didn't do that. He tried to force it. When his arm went back, knocked it right out and won the game for him. And I think that was a big sigh of relief. You could see it in Phillip Rivers. They showed him on the sidelines. I honestly thought they were going to lose, because as soon as they got the fumble, he looked like he was about to pass out.
But you were saying, and I had tweeted this out watching the game, the thing that stood out to me is you look at what Phillip Rivers did. That game, like, all things considered, San Diego should have blew Baltimore out of the water. It shouldn't have even been close. And I think that's what separated. That's the reason why Phillip Rivers doesn't have a Super Bowl ring, because he holds on to the ball and has never taken the risk the way that Roethlisberger does. And you know, the knock on Ben's always been, well, he throws too many interceptions. Well, he makes too many bonehead plays in the red zone. Well, for every interception that he throws, he puts 2 or 3 through 3 defenders into the end zone too. And in the NFL, you can't trade touchdowns for field goals. And when you're just kicking field goals like San Diego was doing in the first half, it set the table for Flacco to start moving the ball. And then all it took was 1 or 2 scores, and they were right back in the middle of the game. If they score touchdowns instead of field goals, you might have saw Joe Flacco in the game, because they weren't going to let Lamar Jackson get shelled being down 30 points.
Yeah, they kept settling for the field goals because as soon as they got down there, they got conservative. They changed the playbook. We see it all the time. That's what happens with previous Andy Reid teams, since we mentioned it earlier. The reason he loses in the playoffs is he changes his scheme. So we'll see. He has a high-power offense this year. I think they had like the top fantasy tight end, top fantasy receiver, and one of the top fantasy running backs. So you have 3 weapons on offense. Is he going to clamshell it up when they play the Colts? That's exactly what the Chargers did. They ran down the field. It was like, hurry up and kick that field goal. Okay. It was like 9-6, 9-7 at one point. And I thought, holy crap, the Ravens are going to win this just because the Chargers don't know what to do down there. They got conservative, started throwing horizontal. It just doesn't work. And you're right on Phillip Rivers. At this point in your career, you got to do something. If you want your name to be remembered, the NFL, they had him on like a list of Hall of Fame watch quarterbacks or whatever. To me, you can't get in. Just because you played for how many years doesn't automatically put you in the Hall of Fame. They need like a reliability fame where you just go over there and it's like people that played forever at average stats. Because you can get a ton of stats just by playing forever. But that doesn't mean anything if you don't ever win anything. So win. This is your year. You play the Patriots next week. It's at New England. 105 on Sunday. Win. Do something. Because normally he's bounced out. So the other team that stood out to me, Dallas. And I don't know what if it's the Cooper. Cooper might put them over the edge. That might be the deal in the NFC, because if I'm honest, Philadelphia didn't impress me. So now Dallas is playing the Rams. Was it Saturday night game? And if they get past them, they most likely play the Saints, and that's a good contrast of styles. I mean, it's not beyond imagination that they could win this. I'm just not high on the NFC teams. Looked awesome during the regular season. Very top-heavy, but I just don't think they're going to get it done. I think that Dallas has a chance this year just because of the Cooper deal. And a lot of NFL teams are really scared to make a move like that in the middle of the season, so let's see if it pays off. Matt, were you shaking your head no?
No. They played the Seahawks. They're awful. We were complaining about how poor their offense was. They couldn't score a point on anyone. And we're going to make them out? No. I think the NFL wants them to do well because they're a big money franchise. But guess what? No, it's not happening.
Yes, Dallas.
Go to bed. You're drunk.
Jeff, what do you think?
Oh, I got a lot of stuff to touch on with you guys there. One thing, Matt, you made a great point. The Colts offense there. They went out, got some rookie linemen. Two of them, I believe, both the rookies from the one from Notre Dame. I can't remember the other guy's name. I'm pretty sure they both made the All-Pro list this year as rookies. So the Colts might not have made the sexy picks in the NFL draft, but they brought guys in who could help Andrew Luck and got them the wild card win. Another thing you guys were mentioning, the rookie quarterbacks. I'm so glad the Ravens lost for one simple fact. If Lamar Jackson would have went to Foxborough and played Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, they would have lost by 45 points. No rookie quarterback goes into the playoffs and plays well at Foxborough. I don't care how good the Ravens defense is, how well they're running the ball. Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, the Patriots would have carved them up. And I think an interesting thing talking about rookie quarterbacks, no quarterback with essentially any playoff experience won last weekend. Lamar Jackson lost. Deshaun Watson lost. Mitch Trubisky lost. All the quarterbacks that won had some sort of playoff experience. Dak Prescott, I'd say, is the only one who has limited playoff experience that was able to win. But that's because of the running game, plays by Amari Cooper. But I don't think the Cowboys have a legit shot against the Rams, especially if the Rams get up early. The Cowboys all season long can't play from behind. Dak Prescott plays well when the Cowboys are winning, and Zeke is running well. They don't play from behind. So if the Rams get up early, that could get ugly. But if the Cowboys come out, draw first blood, establish the run game, they could very easily beat the Rams. And on the opposite side, they already beat the Saints this year. So if they could pull off the win against the Rams at LA, who knows what happened in the NFC Championship against the Saints? Because I'm marking the Eagles off. They're not going to beat Drew Brees in New Orleans. That's not going to happen. So I think it's going to be the Saints versus the Cowboys or the Rams in the NFC. But you're shaking your hair there, Richie, about the rookie quarterbacks. What do you have to say about – you think Lamar Jackson would have a shot at Foxborough?
Well, Jeff, first off, you just went opposite there with the Rams. Don't they have a young quarterback with limited experience?
Experience last year. He had his goose egg last year because he played awful last year in the playoffs.
Well, what constitutes experience then? Do they have to get a playoff win, or can you just lose forever?
They have to play the Seahawks, that's all.
Hey,
I mean, Dak had his bad game against the Packers. What was it, 2 years ago?
I don't even know.
Playoff experience. I think it was 2 years ago.
You got to win, though. Foles didn't really have experience. They didn't even want him in that game last year. They were begging for Wentz to come back, and then they won it all, and then they were ungrateful. So I think Foles is going to do better than what people expect because the guy knows how to win. Unfortunately, he's not up against the Rams or the Cowboys. He's up against Drew Brees, who also knows how to win. Even though, let's be honest, he hasn't won since they were paying players to hurt other players.
Hey,
if we're being honest, that's it. Yeah. They haven't won since then. A lot of people call out my man Tom Brady on his Deflategate and stuff and says, well, look how he's doing since then. Look what Drew Brees did since his hit thing. They haven't done anything. So, hey, don't be surprised if they pull that upset. I'm high on Nick Foles because I like guys that win. Some guys have it. Some guys don't. So if Foles is going to be that guy and he wins, even if he gets them to the NFC Championship game and they fall short against the Rams or something, the Eagles are absolutely nuts to not name him the starter. They're just nuts. You just can't get rid of a Super Bowl winning quarterback. It wasn't Trent Dilfer. It wasn't like the Eagles have a lights out D and everyone's like, yeah, that D was so amazing. Or like it's like the Tampa Bay D back when they won the Super Bowl. It wasn't anything like that at all. So they had a quarterback that's able to make the throws. Anyone could be snatching him up. And I think that's the kind of guy you want. And, I mean, look at the other quarterbacks that are left. Tom Brady. You have Phillip Rivers. He's been non-existent. Drew Brees. Okay, that's one Super Bowl. We already mentioned that. Andrew Luck. Does he even have any playoff experience? We don't know if he's any good. Mahomes. Unknown. We'll see what he's like. And then you already mentioned Rams and Dallas. So Foles could be the guy behind Tom Brady. He could be that guy, and he could take that run because there's not really any other quarterbacks that have stepped up into that position. We've kept hearing it about Aaron Rodgers for the past decade. Oh, just wait till Aaron Rodgers, wait till Aaron Rodgers. He didn't do anything. He turned out to be a bust. We don't have the guy to take the reins from Tom Brady. If the Eagles are smart, maybe they have that guy.
Yeah.
Maybe they have a guy that can just win. Every year, remember, we heard about Tom Brady. Well, he's not that strong. Well, he's not in shape. Look, he's doing weird fish diets. Well, he's modeling. He was messing around with his kids. He kissed them. And every year there was something that he was going to be the downfall of Tom Brady, and it never happened. Maybe Foles takes that mantle and just runs with it, wins another Super Bowl this year. I would hate to see it because I hate Philadelphia. And my man Mitch Trubisky let me down in fantasy, let me down in real life when they couldn't beat the Eagles. So
I almost wonder if he was injured during the playoff game because there are a couple times where he was hobbling around. I almost wonder if he was playing through an injury.
Yeah, Matt, he might have been. You're definitely right. He was hobbling a lot.
Yeah, he has been injured all year. I think didn't he miss a couple weeks?
2 or 3, yeah.
Yeah, I just think that they didn't have any contingency plan. They knew they had a great defense, so they went with them. And to be honest, it wasn't a bad showing. So maybe next year he's fully healthy. We'll see what happens. Takes that next step. Still young. Still has room to grow.
Yeah.
How long are we going on this? You guys got any other games you want to hit? You want to make predictions or anything?
Well, there's one other thing we need to hit on, and that's Arizona's new coach. Good old Cliff Kingsbury left USC and has signed a 4-year deal to become the head ball coach of the Arizona Cardinals.
I want to get your thoughts on this, Matt. You're head coach. USC was actively trying to block him from interviewing. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, let's just start at square one. He was fired from Texas Tech and immediately jumped at USC, which makes me think, was there no other offers, or was there nowhere else around that I thought for sure somewhere would have had a head coaching opening, and he would have been able to get himself at least an interview somewhere for head coaching positions. Why jump to USC as quick as he did? And then once he was there, if I was Lynn Swann, I'd be pissed off that you sign a guy. You got people that are really excited about him being on board. It plays into your I believe it was before the early signing period, so they were able to use some of that hype to win recruits. And now he up and leaves. Like it screws with USC's program from top to bottom. That now there's a recruiting cycle. There's some of that momentum that they were building that's now taken back. And I think it's a poor showing. If he was considering the NFL, there was no need to go to USC. I think he could have said, "Hey, I want to explore what's out there," and there was no need to press that contract. I think it's a shame on him.
I'll say it might have helped USC bringing in a bunch of recruits, and I don't know how I feel about the early signing period. You get a coach, looks like he's going to be your coach. You're pumped about him. Let's say you're a receiver that was going to go to Texas Tech. You're like, oh, coach is going to go and coach USC. I'll go there instead now. Signs your offer. Coach leaves. Now you're stuck at USC when maybe you're from Texas and you're ready to go to Texas Tech or somewhere else. Now you're locked in. You have to wait a whole year, even if the NCAA has that new transfer rule that means you don't have to sit out. You basically have to sit out this year and learn a system. Maybe you traveled far away from home. I would assume he got a lot of Texas guys to sign with USC or vice versa. Maybe he didn't. I don't follow too much their recruiting because they recruit different guys than what the Big Ten gets just because they get most of the California guys and only Michigan, Ohio State in the Big Ten can pull people from California. I don't even think Penn State can, to be honest. So you don't get a lot of movement out there. So maybe I'm wrong, but I would assume that he had a relationship with a bunch of guys. He said, look, if you want to play in my offense, come out to USC. And that period's already done. They're signed. They can't get out of it, to my knowledge, once they sign. And I think the NCAA, like Matt, we talked about before, you need to institute the rule that if your coach leaves after you sign, you should be able to re-sign in January or February, whenever that second date is. And I think that's something the NCAA really has to look at, because you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. But I can't fault him. It's basically a pay grade. It's a bump. He went from head coach at Texas Tech. He has to be making more money in the NFL. And to be honest, he probably has more job stability, because we talk about all the time, the NFL just recycles coaches. He fell there. John Harbaugh, if he wouldn't have made the playoffs, the Ravens were going to let him go. How many teams were lined up waiting for that to happen? Now he's staying. Who else? Bruce Arians just got that other job with Tampa Bay we talked about. Why?
Dirk Carter got recycled. They got fired from Tampa. He's now the new OC for Atlanta.
Well, once you're in the NFL, I think you're able to cycle through. And I'll throw this out there. Did you guys see that they asked one of his first interviews with USC, they asked why he chose it, and he mentioned the beautiful women on USC's campus. Did you see that, Jeff?
No, I didn't. That's hilarious, though.
You're laughing. So maybe he signed so quick, Matt, because they did one of those recruiting trips. What was that movie with Ray Allen, the basketball one?
He got game.
He got game. Yeah, you saw the recruiting trips in that. Maybe that's how they wooed Cliff Kingsbury. And he was like, I just signed this contract. All I saw was beautiful women and some footballs. Yeah, I'm in. And then once the NFL called, he was off the hook. I don't know.
Wasn't that like Drew Bledsoe that had a recruiting story like that?
Yeah, Washington State. They kept asking him why he went up there. And it was something like that. I believe so. I could be wrong, because I don't want to put words in his mouth. But I think it was in the early days of the ESPN magazine, back when they actually, did journalism. Now who knows what they're doing. But crazy. Any other coaching moves in the NFL you guys want to hit on? I don't think there's too many others yet. We're going to see, because I know people are wanting to talk to others. The only other one, a lot of people are interested in McDaniels from New England. So they're still in the playoffs, but he might be on the move. So keep an eye on that in the future, because that one will be coming up in the next couple weeks. Because didn't we have the one coach that kind of accepted while they were still coaching last year in the NFL?
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember if that was last year or 2 years ago. I might be mixing up my years. But I always hate to see a coach's name like that come up while they're in the playoffs, because their heads aren't there. They're not going to be focused. So that's another point there for...
Yeah, no, I'm aware of. I was just telling you, actually, the coaching...
So we'll see. Let's get into college football here as we tail into the end of the show. National championship game last night. Clemson routed Alabama. It was the worst Alabama loss in, over a decade? I actually think it was the worst loss for Alabama since Nick Saban beat them at LSU. That bad. So a crazy time period. I might have lost the guys here, so we'll see if they can jump back in. But I did try to save, and I got to see if I can find it, the television ratings for last night. Absolute bomb of television ratings. It was a 14.6 overnight rating, lowest, even lower than when Alabama had the rematch with LSU in 2012, or lowest since. I don't know. This ESPN article doesn't really read as well as I thought it did. Last year was a 16.7, so it's almost 2 points, which is over 2 million people less watched the game this year. I had to watch it, and Jeff, I know you had issues, so I want to get your thoughts. I turned on the ESPN app, and we haven't talked about ESPN for a while. ESPN's trying to get people to pay for ESPN Plus. I think that's great if they're going to be able to roll in content from the NHL Network and the Major League Baseball Network. If ESPN Plus is able to absorb them, and let you pick any game without blackouts. Get rid of blackouts. Make me pay $5, $10 a month. Even if it goes up to $10 a month, I don't care. And let me watch every Penguins game, every Pirates game, out of market, even in market. I would sign up 100%. But they don't do that. They pick and choose games. And as a fan, that's not how I was raised. Maybe kids now, with the social media stuff, they can be front runners. I'm used to growing up where you like the teams in your area, maybe a couple other teams you root for, but that's it. You root for the same team. The LeBron generation, you kind of root for whatever team's hot, and that's kind of how ESPN has their app set up. But I sign in to try to use it to watch a game. ESPN never works. It has never worked for me since I've tried to use it. I tried to watch Michigan play Florida in the Orange Bowl. The ESPN channel didn't work. Last night for the national championship, tried to stream it on their ESPN Plus. ESPN doesn't work. Jeff, you tried to get on, and you text me. ESPN didn't work. I ended up watching the game on ESPN2, and I absolutely hated it. They had half of the screen was cut. The game was put in one little corner, and then they had two guys that were on field. It was, I don't even know the ESPN analyst names. But there were two different guys that were on the field, and they were supposed to give you sideline access. I'm assuming one guy was on Clemson's sideline and one guy was on Alabama's sideline. But to me, why make that so big? Like, why take up half my television screen just showing a guy stand awkwardly on the sideline? Complete waste of resources, which I'm assuming no one else was watching that channel with me. That's why it streams so well. I was probably the only guy watching it. Because I'll be honest, we've talked about it on this show before. I hate listening to football commentators. If I have trouble with ESPN during college football, I'll turn on their Spanish stream and just mute it. Because I know no one else is on there and I won't get kicked off the stream. So, Jeff, that's my pro tip to you. I know you're having issues, and I was telling you, ESPN had, 4 or 5 channels going at the same time. They had the game on ESPN Classic, and they're still dropped 2 million viewers. You're telling me they couldn't add up 4 channels that just had casual people? What about all the bars that just have that channel on all of the time? And they dropped 2 million. Has to hurt them. And I think it's due to the rematch. So, Jeff, talk about your issues. When you signed on, what happened with the app?
Yeah, it basically had some kind of internal error that I don't even know what that means. I tried to watch it on ESPN, the ESPN app, and it had all those different channels. It had ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN Classic, some kind of ESPN goal line. I don't even know half these things. I tried every single one of them and had an internal error. I was so furious with ESPN. Didn't work. Missed the first 4 minutes of the game. I finally had to use good old reliable VIP box me to watch the game like it was 2006 again. And it blows my mind. It's 2019 now, and I can't use an app that I pay for to watch the national championship. No wonder people aren't watching the game. No wonder 2 million people didn't tune in this year. Probably they tuned in like I did and are casual fans and didn't go the extra lengths to try to watch the game. You know what I mean? So very, very bad look for ESPN. The ratings show. Obviously, the game didn't help, but it was kind of funny to me because those internal errors were happening in the first half. And then when the game became a blowout in the fourth quarter, I tried to, for humor, to try the ESPN app. Worked perfectly. Got right on ESPN when there was no one watching anymore and got to watch the end of the fourth quarter. But is honestly, it just speaks volumes of how bad ESPN is these days and why no one wants to watch. And when you pay for a product and you can't even enjoy it or watch it, what are you supposed to do?
Jeff, and it's not even that extreme. ESPN used to be awesome at streaming games, and Matt can attest to this. I would invite Matt over on Saturdays. We would watch 8 games at a time. They used to let you do 4 split screens, and I would have my computer showing 4 games, and I would have my television showing 4 games. Now I've upgraded to dual TVs, and I would love to have that capability. 2 55-inchers just showing 4 games at a time.
Yeah.
I would just pass out in a coma on my couch every Saturday. And for some reason, they took that away. Now you can barely watch one. And they're charging more. And I don't even care. Like I said, I would pay for it if it's reliable. And I live right now in ACC country. And Matt, this is going to hit you hard next year. The ACC network, guess where those games are going to be? They're going to be on the streaming app, like the SEC games. So when you try to watch Florida State next year, it's going to be living hell for you. I can barely watch it.
Because we're going to be primetime, because we're going to be back to winning ball games.
Well, you guys did bring in the Pope. I saw that. That's what it's coming down to. And I would love the Big Ten Network to at least try to do something like that, because at this point, I can stream Michigan basketball. Luckily, undefeated, ranked number 2 in the country. They're on national TV all the time these days. But I remember a darker time when Michigan wasn't ranked and the games would be on Big Ten Network, and it was hit or miss. ESPN was light years ahead of these other networks. And for whatever reason, if it has something to do with them cutting costs or whatever, it's just disappointing that they would put all this money in. And I don't want to see college football shrink. Like, I don't want to see them lose 2 million viewers. But maybe, like Jeff said, they just can't get people to tune in because you try it once, you get frustrated, and then it's much easier just to hit Netflix on your remote. Casual fan, You're like, I'll read about it, or I'll just bring up Gamecast while I watch Netflix. Because I know a bunch of people that do that. Like, hey, did you watch the game? I was binge watching some show, and I had it up on my phone, just the Gamecast following along, checking my fantasy guys. I know that's a big for the NFL. Like, old Steeler fans used to watch every game. Luckily, those are over the air. But let's get into the actual game itself. Anything that stood out with you? We'll start with you, Coach. Any points you saw in this game?
Just surprising from the Alabama side, the amount of mental mistakes, and for Saban, who is really well known for having his team ready to play, to have them kind of making the mistakes and the interceptions and the turnovers and different things just was uncharacteristic of how Alabama typically plays. I think it was just it comes from the development of the players that Clemson has. They're getting the most out of the guys that they have on campus, and I think they just lined up and just punched Alabama right in the mouth, and Alabama took it.
I think you're right to the point with, actually, they got pushed around, and if it wasn't for the turnovers, I think they could have turned it around. I thought Alabama still had, Clemson didn't stop them until late in the second quarter on offense, except for the interceptions. And they were forced throws that he shouldn't have made. But the one key point that stood out to me that was 100% coaching, fake field goal attempt.
Yeah.
When they made that, I knew the game was over, and then I was praying for them to hit the over. Because we talked about the College Bowl pick'em. We did some of our picks, but it was a crazy Christmas year. I put some of mine out. I won the College Bowl, and I was down in the tiebreaker to see what happens after that. So I needed Alabama and the over to get my definitive win with all the tiebreakers. And I get the over, and I'm just waiting for Alabama to come back because they scored 4 touchdowns in the first 4 minutes. And I thought, this is great. I'm going to hit the over. I'll take that win. I never win the Bowl pick'em. To have what? I don't even know what we picked. I'll have to add it up. Did I get 38 points or something like that? So that's crazy. I never hit on that many games correctly. And I want to take this time to call out Mark D'Antonio. Your Michigan State Spartans lost me a definitive win, not a tie first place. I got hardballed on this one where you win, but you don't get all the tiebreakers. So technically you could hang a banner, but it's embarrassing. But at this point, Mark D'Antonio, bro, get a field goal team. How can you not kick a field goal against Oregon? You could have won that game, could have won me the Bull pick'em, and I hate picking the Spartans. So, very embarrassed. Very embarrassed. You let the Big Ten down, you let me down. You let every fan down that picked you. I feel bad for Spartan fans. But I'll get back to it. Alabama, you pull the fake field goal. The worst fake field goal of all time. They let the holder follow the kicker through the hole. Matt, did you see that play?
Yeah, it was the third string quarterback. And the worst part about it was in one of the interviews, Saban said, "Well, that was the look we were going for." against Clemson's starting defense? That's what you were hoping that you were going to get? Like, get the hell out of here. No, you weren't.
The kicker was the lead blocker. They're like, hey, why don't we? It's not like they have Sebastian Janikowski back there. That kid was like, what, $150? And he's supposed to blow up those, let's be honest, those juiced out Clemson linemen, which is another point. NCAA, next time, give me a heads up before bowl pick'ems. So for my tiebreaker, I can make sure that I know which team is juicing before I make my tiebreak picks. Like, come on. Give me a little courtesy there. Not let me know 5 days before the game. Very unfair. If I'd have known Clemson was juicing up, that might have swayed my pick. But, bam, worst call. You know, as soon as he went for the fake kick, that he knew they were done. They missed it. They went for 4th down early in the goal line. Always take the points. I'm a coach that always takes the points. And I don't know why so many coaches don't. Like, you've won how many championships, Nick? Take the points and go back and try to win the game. But they gave up. 100% gave up. And it's another reason why I hate the early signing day period before bowl games. Because all those guys that signed with Alabama, I know Michigan flipped one back, but after seeing that display, maybe some of those recruits start to look elsewhere. Maybe a coveted lineman, Matt, like the Florida State's looking for. Maybe they saw that performance and they thought, hey, you know what? Maybe I'm not going to get coached up. Maybe, as I've been saying all year, I don't think Alabama played anyone. I wasn't sure how good they were because I don't think the SEC was good this year. I don't think Georgia was good this year. Georgia's losing a ton of guys to the NFL. I just don't know. I could not vote them number one next year going into next year. I think they have the early lead in the odds. I actually think, I probably didn't save it. Early odds for the national championship right now, I think was Alabama, then Clemson. Those could be switched. Third was Ohio State. Then fourth was Michigan and Georgia tied. Those are your top 5 teams in odds for the national championship game next year. So it's going to be more of the same. Alabama and Clemson. Jeff, anything you want to add? I know I've been going long on this. I had a lot of points I wanted to make.
Oh, yeah, definitely. You were breaking up a little bit there, so I hope you guys can hear me. But that was the first time in a big game, and as long as I can remember, that Nick Saban did not have his team prepared, like Matt said. The team didn't play well. It was just hard to watch. A lot of bad calls. You mentioned it, leaving points on the field. There's so many different scenarios earlier in that game. They played out a little differently. I feel like Alabama would have had a decent shot at winning the game. When you leave points on the board, drive after drive, that's demoralizing for the offense. That starts getting in your head. It's like, okay, we need to press harder. We need to press harder. And you saw the way Tua played. He kept pressing, and that's where the picks came, the fumbles came. Whenever you're a quarterback and you're playing from behind and you start pressing, bad things are going to happen. And for that offense in the first quarter, they were driving the ball by running the ball. And when you're playing from behind after, you have those turnovers, it's hard to stick with the run. And, I mean, things kind of spiraled out of control. Lawrence, whatever his name is, the Clemson quarterback, he played lights out. Hats off to Clemson for the way they played because they played to the best of their abilities and they left it all on the field and they deserved to win the game. But if the game would have started out a little differently, not throwing a pick six, not having those turnovers, I feel like Alabama could have ran the ball, controlled the tempo of the game. I mean, how many times could you remember in a big game, whether it's college or NFL, where a team has the time of possession and gets blown out? I think Alabama had 27 minutes to Clemson 17 at one point, so they were winning the time of possession. And whenever you're running the ball and you're being successful like that and having the time of possession, usually good things happen. In this game, it didn't. Nick Saban, don't know what he was doing on the fake field goal, as you went in depth with. Whenever you have the starting defense on the field and they're clearly looking for a fake and you still fake it, that's horrible coaching. Call a timeout in that situation. I mean, obviously the kicker for Alabama isn't very good, so they can't really trust him. But I feel like you either, one, attempt the kick, or two, leave your offense on the field. With that being said, year in and year out, Nick Saban and Alabama brings in some of the best recruits in the country. Hands down has so much talent, and usually when he faces an opponent, his talent wins the game. How can you not, when you have that much talent on a team, how can you not recruit a kicker? It blows my mind. Alabama never has a kicker. In this big game like this, when you leave points on the field over and over because you don't have a kicker, he's got to address that in the near future. I mean, you're in a national championship game and you can't kick field goals. How's that even possible? You got to go for every fourth down. Sorry, I went on a rant there too. I hope I wasn't breaking up there, but it just didn't make sense that game and the way. Yeah, but the way Nick Saban approached that, I'm not sure if that was quite him or the offensive coordinator, but I thought there were some very, very questionable calls, some fourth downs they maybe shouldn't have went for. I know they extended some drives in the Wildcat, running up the middle with that. I think it was number 8. I mean, that guy can really run the ball. So when you have an offense that has the offensive line that they do, and the running back by committees with, I'm sure most of those running backs were some of the best running back recruits in the country. When you have that much talent in the backfield, run the ball. Don't let Tuitt get behind, feel the pressure. Another thing, too, I don't know if you guys saw, he had 400 family members there. So not only were things not going Alabama's way, he had 400, family members there. They're behind. He's pressing. Things aren't going well. And it just unraveled very quickly. And when Lawrence plays at that level, at an NFL level like that, it's pretty hard to be beat in college.
I'll say with that, I think he was never in that situation before. And once he had the 2 interceptions, I think Alabama panicked. I think, like you said, Jeff, they were down there. It's not that they don't have a kicker. It's just the fact that they were so scared of Clemson, which to me at that point, I don't think they should have been. They should have been kicking the field goals, and maybe it would have been a weird score at halftime. Like they could have had, what would end up being like 28-16 or something. Like it could have very easily been 28-22. They could have got 2 more field goals, but they didn't. Yep. They kept doing weird plays. And the other thing that stood out to me, well, before I make this point, Mike Locksley, the OC for Alabama, he's going to be the new head coach at Maryland. And I've already said with the NFL stuff, when you have a coach that accepted another job, maybe their head's elsewhere, but I really don't put it on him. Tua threw the 2 interceptions.
You beat me too.
I mean, Tua threw the 2 interceptions. I think he pressed. The one play that really stood out to me, I think it was their second touchdown. Was it 4th down at the goal line? Or it might have been 3rd down. It was really short. And he threw out a ridiculous play that ended up being wide open. And it was definitely a wrinkle that they put in. Clemson had never seen it. And I thought, holy crap, that was a well-designed play. Why did they run it there? And I was worried at that point that if he's running plays like that now, that should be a late game 4th down or short yardage play where you need to convert. Not first quarter, 4 minutes into the game, that you're rolling out this trick goal line play to get a touchdown. That made me think they didn't think they could control the line of scrimmage, or they didn't think they could get any push, or whatever the reason was. They didn't have enough to go right at Clemson. They had to get tricky early, and I thought, no, maybe I'm just crazy, and they have a bunch of plays like that lined up. But the more the game went on, I knew that early in the game, if you go back and watch the tape, watch the play, it was one of the early touchdowns. It was like a reverse toss or something like that. Maybe it was like a screen. I can't remember, out of the backfield, because that game just drug on, and it was such a beatdown that I can't remember clearly. I should have looked it up. I'll see if I can find the play actually, and I'll tweet it out. But that's the one thing that stood out to me. When you're throwing the wrinkles in 4 minutes into the game, you're already lost mentally. You've already lost. You're giving up. But Matt, you were going to say something there?
Yeah, I felt like Alabama last night. They got ricked. Having your offensive coordinator split between 2 jobs and going back and forth, you can't do that. I think the times that they're split between both places, it never bodes out well, because they're too busy, distracted with one job or the other. And if they do focus, in the games where the coach does do a good job preparing the current team, they're often neglecting the new school, and they end up not getting off to as fast of a start. I'm not surprised when I saw that Loxley was calling the plays. And that was just something that stood out to me because it sucks when you're on that end on the big stage.
I don't know what else they could have done. I think they were just outmanned, and I think they were propped up by a weak SEC. I mean, Georgia got ran out of town by Texas. Basically, took all they could to get back into that game. And that was a Texas team that lost to Maryland. So that's not even a world-beating Texas team. Oklahoma, it looks even worse for them now. Notre Dame, you could say that it's a little bit better for them, but at that point, I don't know. If I was everyone else, I would honestly revisit the PEDs. If they only tested 10 of Clemson's guys, like has been reported, and 30% of their team tested positive for steroids, I mean, if I was Alabama and them, why not test the whole team? At least push for it, because right now you're setting up a scenario where you have Alabama and Clemson playing every year, and Clemson's not recruiting at that level. They're not. They were 9 or 10 in the 24/7 composite rankings the last couple of years. So if they are doing something to give their guys an edge, if the NCAA TV ratings keep going down, maybe it's something they look into.
But if you're looking at the ratings, here's just a foreign concept. You don't see any other major sport. You don't see many major sports doing it on a Monday night. Well, if you really want to turn it into a bigger thing, play it on a Saturday. Put it on prime time. You don't take throughout the college football season. They're not taking that 7:00 game. They're not putting it on Monday night. They're not trying to compete with Monday Night Football. So why not try to play Saturday? College football games are played on Saturdays. Play it on a Saturday. I guarantee you would have jumped regardless. You would have caught more fans. And I know that at that point you're competing with the NFL playoff crowd, but I don't think that your numbers would have been hurt by that. I really don't.
I'll add one more point. I think the only point against that is that the college basketball national championship is on a Monday. And I want to say the scary thing for football right now, the way they're doing it, and the reason that they're wrong in their thing where everyone keeps repeating each other saying, we just need the two best teams. We need the two best teams. We don't need to expand the playoffs. I'm pretty sure the college basketball national championship game beat this national championship game in ratings. And basketball should not beat football in TV ratings. It just shouldn't. And that's a 1-to-1, college to college. So I'll look at the ratings as we do the final bell, and I'll try to bring that in for mine if I can find them. But let's go around here, do the final bell. You got anything? We'll start with you, Matt. Anything to wrap up the show with?
No, I think I shot everything out. The one thing I did like, originally I was hard on it with the coach's room. I thought I did catch a little bit of they had the Monday Night Football crew or the game calling it with Witten and McFarland. I was expecting it to be a lot worse than what it was. It ended up not being too bad. I still would have liked to have seen it with guys like Paul Johnson on there just to get their perspective. I think even getting some of the coaches that are on the outs, like guys that aren't looking to actively get back into it. I know like early in the year they showed it. They had Hugh Freeze and Mac Brown who ended up getting back in the game this offseason. But I think it's interesting just to see some of the coaches that don't have a vested interest and see like through their eyes what's going on with the games. The other thing that with the game cast that I thought was interesting was they had that one view that was like the overhead cam. It was like the most motion sickness causing thing that you could ever watch because it was constantly just like rocking back and forth and going around. I think I watched it for maybe 2 or 3 minutes and I had to turn it off because I was going to throw up.
Matt, I'm so glad you brought that up because it's something that I think NBC started, and I noticed it in the Bears game when they went for that field goal that ended up hitting the goalpost. You guys said was called blocked. The camera zoomed in so close, and they followed the ball through the air. I had no idea where it was, and I was so mad that I was yelling, like, zoom out so I can see if that went through or not, because you couldn't see the refs in it. they had like the sky cam and they tried to follow the ball and I couldn't see anything. And I was thinking, who is this for? Like, do you have a bunch of blind guys watching this game when they can't see the ball? So you just zoom in, you can't see the goalposts or anything? And even their replay, they showed 3 replays of it super zoomed in. Like that was supposed to show me that they missed it. I just wanted the whole view. If you're going to do the stupid sky cam, you can't have it tight. And that's what I think you're talking about. When it's tight, it is disorienting. Please stop that. Please. That's for no one. No one wants to see that. Jeff, what do you got for final bell?
Final thoughts for the night. Like we mentioned, we talked about a lot. Nick Saban got out-coached. He went away from his conservative game plan like he usually does. He was pressing early in the game. And usually Alabama usually lets their better athletes win the game. And this time they didn't. They pressed too much. Clemson played well. The quarterback, Lawrence, and that receiver, Ross, who was an Alabama boy, balled out in that game. Forgot to mention that earlier. He was a true freshman quarterback. Clemson's going to be tough for the next couple of years. Very interested to see how they play. And one last thing I wanted to mention earlier, with the Chargers and Patriots playing in Foxborough, the last time Phillip Rivers played the Patriots in Foxborough in the playoffs was 2007. Phillip Rivers had a torn ACL, so I'm expecting much better things this time around from Phillip Rivers. And absolute final thing, I'm picking my teams for the playoffs this weekend. I'm taking the Chargers at the Patriots, taking the Colts at Arrowhead, and I'm taking the Rams versus the Cowboys and the Saints versus the Eagles. Those are my 4 winners for the weekend.
So basically, you're taking the underdogs in the AFC and the favorites in the NFC.
Yep. That's my picks.
We'll see how that heads off. For mine, to wrap it up, I was wrong. I was thinking of 2 years ago, the national championship game between North Carolina and Gonzaga drew a 14.5 rating, which is very close to, I think what I say was like 14.6 this year or something. Very close to basketball. And basketball, the NBA final ratings are nowhere near the Super Bowl or even the NFL playoff ratings. The college basketball ratings should not be anywhere close. They did move the championship game last year to, TBS and True TV, and it only drew a 10.3 last year, which is very similar to the playoff play-in games this year. What was it, the Peach Bowl and something else? I think those both drew a 10. But it's part of being on cable and not being on the regular TV channels. But Monday night, I mean, you can still draw big. So we'll see what happens. Definitely get some football in. Let's go. Ravens are out, so that's good. We'll see what happens. And thanks for listening. Go Pens. And we will see you next week.